for money supply is repayment of public debt. So when public debt, which is being borrowed by the government, when it is repaid, it will lead to money supply, increase in money supply. With respect to increase in money supply, this in turn leads to inflation. Saroni, I hope you're following. So public debt, there are many ways of public debt. It could be with respect to bonds, it could be with respect to treasury bills, and there are many more. We will be looking into all those instruments later on. But here you need to understand that when the public debt is repaid, money supply is increasing. And when money supply is increasing, it leads to inflation. I hope you understood. Saloni? Yeah, very good. Saloni, can you please acknowledge if it is clear?
Yeah. Sir, yesterday you gave the example of municipality bond,
Yeah.
right? So I didn't
Yes, yes.
understand that example. I really want to get in, understand the
Okay.
example.
See now, generally, see if you take, for instance, every municipal body has a problem of, first is it doesn't have the right human resource. The human resource is minimum, and even the financial resource is minimum. Even the finances are minimum. Okay. So most of the times, if you have seen, the municipal bodies will not be able to perform effectively because of lack of finances. Because if you see the issue, the municipal bodies are local governments. You will be reading this as a part of polity, and local governments do not have the capacity to gain their own taxes or issue their collect their own taxes. So they will depend on the state government. But the state government supplying the money to the local bodies will have its political connotations also. For example, if the local bodies is from an opposition party, and if there is a different party in the state government, there will be a conflict here with respect to the funding. So always the municipal bodies are strained with lack of financial resources. So in that time, what we are recommending is when we have a good bond market, we will come to that later. If we have a mechanism where rather than you paying taxes but you see, we generally complain that our roads are not very good, our garbage collection is not good, the facilities of the civic communities are not good, correct?
Yes,
So
sir.
why is that issue occurring? It's because our municipal bodies are not effective, the funding is not coming to the municipal bodies. So in that regard, there is a new mechanism that has been introduced. Students, please mute yourself. Yeah. So the new mechanism that is introduced is called as municipal bonds. Already Allahabad municipality has issued municipal bonds, where under the municipal bonds, you can purchase these bonds. These bonds will give you a certain interest rate. So when you invest in these bonds, the money will go to the government, and the government will use the money to fulfill the activities. Saloni, I hope you're following.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. And so fulfill the activities, and later on, the government can pay back the bonds. So this way, what is happening? I'm just giving an example where when you invest your money in bonds, your savings have been invested. So you will have less money to spend. That in turn reduces the inflation. That's what we meant. It's an
Okay.
example there. Right? Understood?
Okay. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Next question, students. Yeah. Vinay has asked a question here. Uh, Debenture bond holders versus equity holders. We didn't touch upon that yet, Vinay. We'll touch upon that today. So just to recap what we did in the yesterday's class. So we touched upon what is inflation and deflation, and demand and supply factors will affect inflation or deflation. We saw that. And in yesterday's class, we had a clear understanding about what is inflation and certain other terminologies such as deflation, disinflation, and reflation. Yes, Kritika, just a while because students are coming in. I think the disturbance will be there. Himanshu, can you please mute yourself? Yeah, thank you. Kritika, I hope it is fine now. Yeah. So we discussed about the key terminologies such as deflation, disinflation, and reflation. I hope you can recollect these definitions clearly. Deflation is a consistent decrease in the prices. The focus is the prices. and disinflation is slowdown in the inflation rate, and reflation is a phenomenon where the government will stimulate the economy to get back on track. Now just try to recollect what all we discussed yesterday. If you have any doubts, just point out. So next we covered what is Priya? Yes. Priya, you have any doubt? Okay. So then we came into understanding that there are two factors that will affect inflation and deflation. That is demand and Christian, yeah, demand and supply. So we went ahead, understood the factors of demand. Here, when we understood about the factors of demand, we understood the various ways by which, if money flow increases, demand increases. If money flow decreases, demand decreases. So this was a point that we understood. In that regard, we saw that several factors such as increase in money supply, it could be due to fiscal stimulus, it could be due to any other factor. If money supply is increasing, it leads to demand increase. We saw that money supply can increase in the form of increase in disposable income. It could be due to cheap monetary policy. It could be due to increased public expenditure and also due to repayment of public debt. So we understood all these points yesterday and how these can facilitate the demand, right? So this was what we understood about the demand. I hope everything is clear here. So then we went to the supply part of the economy. So when we went to the supply part of the economy, we understood about the factors of production, which is land, that is labor, then we have capital, and then we have entrepreneur. So students, if you see, the reason behind inflation in India is not just because on the demand side, but it is also on the supply side. The supply side is not matching with the demand. And how to improve the supply side of the economy? By working on all these four factors: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur. Then we understood that the supply side of the economy can also get affected due to industrial disputes, due to natural calamities, artificial scarcities, and even when exports are increased, and several other international factors can also affect the supply. So yesterday we had a clear discussion and in detailed discussion about this, right? I hope you're able to recollect everything. Next, we went and understood about the effects of inflation on economy. So when we understood about the effects of inflation on economy, inflation is like the trigger to an engine of economy. So if an economy has to keep running, we need a certain amount of inflation. A healthy inflation rate is absolutely necessary. But if this inflation becomes too high, it affects the economy. So in that regard, we understood that the first effect of inflation is it will lead to redistribution of income and wealth. So we had a discussion clearly about the cycle, the healthy cycle that is causing inflation. And after this, then we went into understanding about Disha, Nikhil, any doubts? Nikhil, any doubts?
No, sir. Sorry, sir. I joined just now, sir.
Okay, fine. Okay. So going ahead, we understood that what is the difference between who is benefited during inflation. So we understood that debtors are benefited during inflation versus creditors. When it comes to producers and consumers, producers are benefited due to inflation. We understood that. Then we understood that flexible income group, that is the business group, are benefited during inflation because inflation leads to growth. Inflation leads to growth. So when you are a flexible income group, you will be expanding your money due to inflation. So that's what we understood. So till here, we had a discussion yesterday. Okay, everything is clear till now. Right? Any doubts till now? Okay, perfect. So then going ahead, we will be discussing furthermore effects of demand, inflation on economy today. So the next one is called as debenture bond holders and equity holders. So students, you will come across this in the chapter called as capital markets. But to tell you briefly, who is an equity holder? So students, see, for example, we have different types of companies. So if you take, for example, Plutus Academy. Now let us say Plutus Academy is right now a private limited company. So when it is a private limited company, what does it mean? The Plutus Academy, can it get its funding from 50 directors? It can get its funding from maximum 50 directors and not more than that. So let us say Plutus Academy wants to go pan-India and they want to expand the company and they're doing very well. Their service is good, the company is expanding, is let us think. So when Plutus Academy wants to expand, assume they need 1000 crores. Assume they need 1000 crore. Now with 50 directors, do you think they can bring 1000 crore? Not possible. So when companies need huge capital, that's when they go public. So when they go public, they go to and issue what is called as IPO. Has anyone heard of it? What is the full form of IPO? Any idea? Yeah, they issue an IPO. It's called as anyone? Can you tell me the full form of IPO? Excellent, Ritvika. Excellent. It's initial public offer. That is, you are making the company public. So what do I mean by that? See, whoever are the directors of Plutus Academy, they will be the promoters and they will get the shares in the company and they will issue the remaining shares to the public. So when they issue the shares to the public through IPO, if you own the share of Plutus Academy, you will be called as an equity holder. So what do I mean by that? Yes, you will also be, Sharda, can you mute yourself?
Can you tell the expansion of IPO?
Yeah. So equity holder is person who is a owner of the company along with others. I'll give you another example. If you own a share of Reliance, Mukesh Ambani is also the owner of Reliance. You holding a single share of Reliance are also the owner of Reliance. But your ownership is only limited to that particular share. So that is what is called as equity holders. So you are a share in the you have a share in the share capital of the company. So because you are an owner of the company, will you get, as an owner, will you get returns even if the company is making loss? No. You will get only returns when the company is making profit. So that is why for an equity holder, you get a profit called as dividend. You will get what is called dividend. So the dividend will vary based on the profit of the company. So during inflation, it is assumed that the growth of the company is high, so dividend is also high. But if you take the debenture bond holders, who are these debentures? What are these debentures? So students, whenever they issue an IPO, to meet the capital, whatever capital they need of 1000 crore, assume they have touched only around 700 crore, but they still need 300 crore more. So that time the company might not go for equity route. The company might issue what is called debentures. So banks generally buy debentures. So when they pull in the remaining 300 crores, since it is a loan given to the company, debenture is a loan given to the company, they are a creditor. So when a creditor is giving the money, they will get the money as a fixed interest rate. So for the debenture bond holders, they get what is called interest. So whether the company is making profit or loss, they have to be get paid first. Who are the debentures? So the question is, during inflation, who is getting benefited? Equity holder or the debenture holder? So during inflation, equity holder can expand the money. He's flexible income group, whereas debenture holder is getting fixed income. So because he's getting a fixed income, he's not getting the benefit of the growth during inflation. So who will be benefited? As all of you have rightly said, it is equity holder. I'll repeat what is debenture. Students, debenture is a loan given to the company with a collateral. And for the loan given to the company who is going public, the loan given to that company, because of the loan given, the company will pay the debenture bondholder a fixed return, right? Whereas equity holder is a person who is a shareholder in a company. Ruxana, if you are an equity holder, for example, if you own a Reliance share, you will be also a owner of the company. And because you're an owner of the company, you get your return in the form of dividend. So dividend is the profit that is shared among the owners of the company. Ruxana, I hope you understood that. Yes, Nitin, equity holders has the same as stakeholders. Absolutely. You can call that. It's not an economic terminology. See, stakeholders is not the right word used all the time, but equity holders are equity holders, but stakeholders is just used as a general term. Okay, Mithali, we started by explaining about debenture bond holders versus equity holders. We will be touching upon this in detail later, but to give you a brief idea, again, Mithali, I'm explaining clearly. Students, for the sake of Mithali, I'm explaining again. Please focus here. Who is the thing that we are discussing? And students, please come out of this notion that you have to be from a commerce background to understand economics. Absolutely not. Economics is our day-to-day affairs. What you are doing every day, day to day, is economics. So when you apply it to your daily lives, you will understand it better. Mithali, I'm explaining it again. Clearly understand. In a company, if a company is going public, what I mean going public is, if they need 1,000 crores, assume, the company will go public. Now, to tell you an idea, if you are owning a share of Reliance, now you are also a shareholder of Reliance. What does it mean? It means that you have the ownership of Reliance up to one share. Whatever share you are owning, up to one share, you have the ownership of Reliance. So if the Reliance is growing, your share value is also increasing. Your dividend is also increasing. So what I'm saying is, who is benefited during inflation? Is it the debenture bond holder or the equity holder? So whoever is growing, whoever is expanding, they are getting benefited during inflation, just like flexible income group and fixed income group. So a equity holder is a flexible income group, whereas a debenture holder is a fixed income group, because a equity holder's return will change based on the expansion of the share or the increase of the profit of the company, whereas a debenture holder will always get a fixed interest. So an equity holder is benefited and not debenture holder. Mithali, did you understand? If you understood flexible income group and fixed income group, you will be understanding this. See, students, why does generally someone become a salaried employee versus someone opening a business? Someone who is ready to take risk, someone who is ready to expand, they will be ready to open up a business. That is a flexible income group. But someone who doesn't want to take risk, but who wants consistent income, that is a fixed income group. But during inflation, who is benefited? The growth is benefiting a flexible income group than a fixed income group. Mithali, I hope you got it. So whenever you have a doubt, please feel free to ask, and do not panic and think that economy is very difficult. It is a simple subject. Just come out of that mindset, you will be able to appreciate it easy. Okay? Yeah. So I hope it is clear. So debenture holder, yeah. Vandita has asked a share. What is a share? See, a share is just a colloquial word. Share is just a colloquial word. Okay? But instead of share, you can call it equity. Equity is nothing but a share in the share capital. You have a share in the share capital. So if 1,000 crores, you can divide it into 10 rupees into 100 crores. So if you own one share of 10 rupees, that means out of this 1,000 crore, you are a owner of 10 rupee share. Vandita, I hope you understood. Okay, good. Good. Moving. Arpit, do you have any
Yes, sir.
doubts?
Yes, just a point, sir. Sir, in addition to what you said, sir, fixed return and flexible returns on debentures and bonds, sir. Sir, can it be also seen on looked in this way also, because sir, debentures offer a higher rate of interest compared to the bonds, sir. So in inflation,
No.
getting back.
Now here, understand just debentures. Don't go into bonds right now. What is your question, Arpit? I didn't get your question.
Sir, can it be also looked in this way, sir, because debentures offer a higher rate of interest compared to bonds, sir. So in inflation, the chances of getting a better return in debentures will reduce compared to bonds, sir. So in inflation, bonds will be a better prospect for investment. Can be looked in this manner also, sir, apart from what you said regarding fixed income and flexible income, sir?
No. Don't look at it that way. Just look that you are getting fixed return, and you're talking about the bond yields, right? You're mentioning
Yes, sir.
about the bond yield.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that is a different concept altogether. Okay, because here
Right.
that varies because of government bonds and corporate bonds. That's a different concept altogether. Here, just look at it straight and understand that debenture holder versus equity holder, who is benefited? That's all. You look,
Right, sir.
don't go into the bonds. Okay, there is a small correction here. Debenture holders is one term. Bond holders is another term. I've added both. That's a mistake here. Don't consider bond. It's just debenture holders versus equity holders. Right? Perfect.
Right, sir.
Hope you
Thank you, sir.
understood. Okay, we'll touch upon the bond yields later. Don't worry about that. Okay. Yeah, Priya, you have any doubts? Okay. So the next is effects on production and consumption. So what happens during inflation? See, when there is inflation, what happens is the growth in the company is happening, as we understood, where there is redistribution of income. But after a certain extent, what happens is the consumption will come down because prices are getting costlier, and even production will come down because consumption is not effective. So during inflation, on effects of production and consumption is both of them will actually come down if it increases after a while. But the initial stage, if it is at a healthy stage, what will happen is the production will be increasing and consumption will also be increasing. So if you want to answer this particular segment, at the initial answer will be production increases and consumption also increases. But if the inflation goes much higher, both of them will come down, right? Okay. So next, I hope this is understood. Yeah. Next is impact on balance of payment. So what is this balance of payment? This is a terminology. Yeah, Sharda?
Sir, could you please repeat that effect on production and consumption?
Okay, I'll repeat it. See, when inflation is increasing, for example, the healthy rate of inflation is 4% plus or minus 2%. So this is the inflation that they are talking about according to Urjit Patel Committee, who is a former governor of RBI. So if the inflation is between this range, we will be able to pick up our production and also the consumption. So effect of inflation on the economy is both the production and consumption will increase. But if it is crosses, let us say 10%, if it crosses 10% inflation, what happens? Things get costlier. So when things get costlier, automatically consumption will come down. And when consumption comes down, even production will come down. Right? Sharda, I hope you understood that. So here, based on the percentage, the production. Yes, Kritika, again, the answer to your question as to why does consumption increase initially, the answer lies in this diagram. Because there is more jobs being created and more purchasing power, and that leads to increased demand, and increased demand leads to prices. Right, Kritika? I hope you understood. Link it to this diagram. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So going ahead. So students, coming to balance of payment. What is this word called balance of payment? To understand in a very simple way, it is the difference between exports minus imports. Yeah, exports minus imports will give us balance of payment deficit or balance of payment surplus. So what is this balance impact on balance of payment when they ask you on inflation? Now, can anyone tell me during inflation, will exports increase or decrease? Can anyone answer this question? During inflation, will exports increase or decrease? Excellent. Most of you are correct. The exports will decrease. The reason behind that is when inflation is higher, the factors of production will become costlier. So when factors of production becomes costlier, when we are exporting a commodity, the competitiveness of the commodity will come down. So when the competitiveness of the commodity comes down, our exports will reduce. And that is the reason why if Make in India program, which is a program which is talking about manufacturing within the country, if that program has to be a success, they have to ensure that the inflation is at an optimal rate. Else what will the exports will come down and they will feel that it is better we import our commodities. And that is the situation that is happening right now in India, that we are dependent on China for many of our raw materials. And especially during this scenario of COVID, we have realized that our manufacturing capacity is so weak and we are so dependent on the global value chains that we are unable to produce the required N95 masks, the ventilators, the PPE kits, and we are dependent on China for that. So when we are able to reduce the inflation, when we are able to set up a right environment for manufacturing, we'll be able to pick up on the exports. That is the issue we are facing today. So when it comes to inflation, what happens to the balance of payment? When there is inflation or too much inflation on the economy, the balance of payment will go to a deficit. When I say deficit, that means we will have more exports than, we will have more imports than exports. So during inflation, the exports decrease and imports increase. Yes, Nitin has asked a question. Recently, onion exports are stopped due to this reason. Yes, Nitin, what is the reason? Can anyone answer Nitin's question? Why has onion exports are stopped? They are not stopped, but the duties are increased. Why are the duties of onion increased? Just excuse me. Yeah. So can anyone answer Nitin's question? Recently, onion exports are stopped due to this reason. Why? Again, exactly. It is there is low supply of onion, as Navya has pointed out correctly. There is low supply of onion. And don't write holdings. We are not sure what is the reason. Understand this. Never write holdings immediately. Okay. When onion supply and onion exports are stopped or exports duties are increased, what does it mean? That means the supply of onion is less in the economy. So when supply of onion is less in the economy, they should not encourage exports of onion. So in this regard, they want to promote the more domestic supply, and that is when they'll have to increase the export duty. Do you all understand? Excellent. Okay. Yeah. So next is impact on balance of payment is imports will increase, exports will decrease. Then impact on exchange rate. So students, you need to note that if $1 is today 78 rupees, correct? If $1 is 78 rupees. Now, why is $1 78 rupees? That means if you want to get $1, you need to pay 78 rupees. And if exports increase, now you tell me, I'll give you two scenarios. If $1 is 78 and if this $1 becomes 80 rupees, okay, this is called as rupee depreciation. Please understand this. This is called as rupee depreciation. That is, rupee is depreciating against the dollar. We will see this as a part of external sector, but I'm just touching it right now. Then if this $1 becomes, let us say, 76 rupees, this is called as rupee appreciation. Now students tell me, during inflation, will rupee appreciate or depreciate? It requires
Sir, it will
thinking and
depreciate.
analysis.
Sir, it will
Okay,
depreciate.
Nikhil, very good. Excellent, excellent. Very fast answers, very good. It will depreciate. Let me explain how it is. So when during inflation, what did we understand? We understood that we are importing more and exporting less. So because we are importing more, why we are importing more? Because it is costly to manufacture that commodity in India. So we are importing from another country. So when we are importing from another country, we have to pay in dollar. So when we are paying in dollar, what is happening? The demand for dollar is increasing and the demand for rupee is decreasing. So when demand for dollar increases, what happens? The value of dollar against the rupee will increase. So what happens to rupee that time? The rupee will depreciate. I hope you understood. Is it clear? If anyone has a doubt, you can ask me and repeat it. Clear? Very good. So these are the kind of questions, students, the exam is asking where they're checking your application. So if this idea is there, you are fine. Okay. One more time I'm repeating as Lakshmi is asking it. See, when there is when inflation is in the economy is high, we are importing more and exporting less. Lakshmi, till this you understood? Lakshmi, till now you understood? Okay, import is high, export is less. So when export is less and import is more, when you're importing a commodity, how do you pay? You pay in dollar. So if you have to pay in dollar, the demand for dollar increases. And as we understood, wherever the demand is high, the prices are high. So when demand for dollar is increasing against the rupee, the amount of rupee that you're paying for the rupee will keep increasing. So the rupee will depreciate against the dollar. Lakshmi, did you understand? Okay. Excellent. Okay. So students, these are some of the effects of inflation on economy. So this is the logic that you need to apply. Most of the scenarios has here, but sometimes UPSC might ask something out of this also. But the logic that you need to apply is when inflation is happening, very simple, you have to apply your logic and come to the right answer. Okay. Yes. Any other doubts in this particular slide? Yeah, you can call that. Yes. Nikhil? Yeah. Nikhil, yes. Tell me.
Sir, then in order for inflation to decrease, then we have to export more, no, sir. So if exports are more, then inflation it automatically decreases.
No. No. How is that possible? Inflation and exports link is because you're exporting more, inflation won't decrease. Understand this. If inflation is optimal, exports will pick up.
Okay, sir.
Nikhil, did you understand?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Understood, sir.
Now, let me tell you this relation here. Please understand this, students. I'll tell you this relation, India scenario. In India, the largest exports, understand this, I'll tell you this. What are the largest exports in India? You will be surprised. The largest exports in India is petroleum products. Petroleum products. Whereas what is the largest import? Crude oil. Largest import is crude oil. I'm sorry, I'm writing it. Largest import is crude oil. And largest export is petroleum products. And one of the largest imports is also rough diamonds and pearls. Largest imports is diamonds. And which is that city in India that is famous for diamond cutting? Excellent. Surat. It produces 90% of the diamond cutting in the world is done in Surat. So we are exporting the cut diamonds and pearls. That is also one of the largest exports. Students, if you see, our exports will be dependent on our imports. So this is where a logic that has to apply. If rupee is depreciating, we have to find out new ways to export commodities. We are depending on the raw material for import, exporting the finished goods. So when this is happening, uh, when this is happening, when diamonds are getting exported, so here when we are increasing our export rate, for increasing our export rate, what we should do? We have to keep our inflation at an optimal rate. So when we keep our inflation at an optimal rate, we will be able to export our goods and make money. So this is where the balance has to come in. Hope you got it. Preksha, any doubts?
No, sir, it
Yeah.
was just by mistake. No, sir.
Okay, okay, fine. So I hope it is clear. So moving on. Yeah. Students, just excuse me just for a minute. Just a Yeah. Students, did you all understand this linkage here? Did you all understand the linkage of import, export, exchange rate? Right? Excellent. Very good. So we will be touching upon these relations. So that is why Raghuram Rajan said that when rupee is depreciating, we are unable to make the export grow because our export infrastructure is very weak in our country. So we want to create exports, and that is the reason why today under GST regime, we have zero rated exports. Zero rated exports. What do I mean by that? The export duties are not charged at all. We have zero duties on exports. Right? Mino has asked a question. During inflation, our export is higher, and same time depreciation in rupee. Mino, you are wrong here. During inflation, our import is higher than export. During a high inflation, our import is higher than export. Mino, please correct it there.
Yes, sir, by mistake, I wrote.
Okay.
Yes, sir, import will be greater, and at that same time, depreciation of rupees is higher. Then it will be not a profitable transaction for India.
Yes, absolutely. It will not be profitable transaction because we are dependent on the raw materials for our exports.
Okay,
Hope you
sir.
got it. So if we can have a mechanism, if you can tap into industries such as leather.
So imports are higher because prices are high in our country. That's why
Yes.
import are higher, no?
Yes, absolutely. Students, kindly note that when I'm saying inflation, this inflation has varied stages. Depending on the stage, these effects will change. This is a point to be noted. Okay, but during an inflationary scenario, this is a possible impact. This is what we're discussing. Yeah. Priya, yes, see, but we are not using any other currency here because in most of the currencies, now we have our, whenever you are converting into international currency, we first convert it to dollar and then to an international currency. Hope you got it. Yeah. So Sheikh, Sheikh Abdul, we will be touching upon that aspect in the further slide. Okay.
Yeah, I have a doubt.
Pranjan, yes.
So why do we need to convert it into only US dollars? Because there are currencies which are more stronger than the US dollar, like Vietnamese currency. Sorry,
See
sorry,
here,
not Vietnamese. It's Kuwaitian dinar. That's much more stronger than like US dollar. Then why do we have to convert it only because, to US dollar?
the US
And
dollar
sir,
is one of the most accepted dollar for trading around the world. So we peg ourselves to US dollar and then to another currency. And if another
so
currency is accepting our rupee directly, we will convert it to another currency.
Okay,
It
sir.
so
depends
what
on the
about
acceptance. Every country has their own acceptance of the currency. So if we are trading with, we have our largest trade one with US also. And that is why our trade deficit is also with very high with US.
so what about
Okay,
euro?
sir. Thank you, sir.
We have pound, we have sterling, we have pound sterling, and we have euro, and there are many more currencies are there. But here we are comparison with is with US dollar right now. Utkarsh, you have any doubts?
No, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Sir, I have a doubt.
Vandita, yes.
Sir, what is balance of payment? Means I have understand that a balance of payment is related to export and import, and when export decreases, import increases. But sir, what is balance of payment and means the meaning of balance of payment? The word balance of
Yeah,
payment.
that's what I'm
Exactly the
saying.
meaning of.
I will tell, I'll go in detail in the chapter called as external sector trade and capital. But here, what you need to understand is when it comes to balance of payment, what is the balance remaining in the payment to be made? So when it comes to balance of payment, students, there are two accounts. One is called as current account, and other one is called as capital account. We will be touching upon it later. So here, when I say balance of payment, we have certain international transactions happening with our country to another country. So when it comes to the transactions that we are having, whatever is the deficit that we have, we will take the money from our reserves and pay the other country. So that is called as the balance that has to be paid to another country is called as balance of payment in these accounts, current account and capital account. What is current account? What is capital account? We will be touching upon in the chapter external sector trade and capital. So here, what I'm asking is, during inflation, what is happening is that the balance of payment will generally be deficit. It will be deficit. When I say deficit, what does it mean? It means that you have a balance that is in negative and you have to pay the money. Did you all understand that? I'm not touching in deep right now because we will be going and touching this chapter separately. Is it clear? Is it clear? Students? Yeah? Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, student. Just a second.
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Yeah, just a second. Okay, let's continue. So this is what is the effect of inflation on the economy, the various type of inflation. Okay, next. So the next is now you will get an answer for these your questions. We have different types of inflation, and it can be differentiated based on percentage, and it can be differentiated based on costs. So if you look at the percentage, if we have less than 3%, it is called as creeping inflation. It is a very slow inflation. Friends, if you see around the November and December time last year, our inflation came down to 2.9%. This was how low the inflation was in our economy. Things were not picking up, things were slowing down. This is called as slowdown in the economy. Slowdown in the economy. Okay, but if it is sorry, if it is 3 to 10%, it is called as walking or trotting inflation. As per Urjit Patel committee report, we are looking at being in the walking or trotting inflation, that is 4% plus or minus 2%. This is what we are looking at. And especially between 3 to 10% is where we majorly look at being. Then running inflation is, it is 10 to 20%. And hyperinflation is 20 to 100%. So these are the different ranges of inflation. So students, based on the range, the effects will vary. So inflation is a double-edged sword. If it is in a positive rate of walking and trotting inflation, then the entire economic engine will be going very well. But if it increases too high, it leads to a disaster in the country. I want all of you to go and see what happened in Venezuela. A documentary on Venezuela. Venezuela had a currency crisis, and where they suffered from a problem a year and a half back called hyperinflation. So students, if you see, in Venezuela, the inflation touched, any guesses? It touched 10 lakh%. You're right, it is 10 lakh%. The prices of the food was doubling every second. And if you see, in Venezuela, they were not paid wages, they were paid eggs as food, because the food was so high that Venezuelan government the currency was losing its value and hyperinflation occurred in the economy, due to which the food prices touched 10 lakh%. And I want all of you to go and see about the Venezuelan crisis and how they tackled it. The Venezuelan crisis had hyperinflation and the currency lost value. The currency had no value at all. And the reason behind that is because the government, to keep up with its targets, see, let me tell you the example here. Can anyone tell me which continent is Venezuela located? Which continent is Venezuela located?
South America.
Yes, South America. It's a Latin American country. And if you see Venezuela, Venezuela is rich in crude oil. It is rich in crude oil. So what happened, if this is South America, this part is Venezuela. Okay. So Venezuela always depended on exports of crude oil, and they did not work upon improving the production within the country. So when US found out shale gas, when US found out shale gas, US stopped purchasing crude oil. The demand for crude oil came down. Go and find out what is shale gas. You'll study as a part of science and technology. And then China's production came down. So China and US are one of the largest players of import of crude oil. So when the global slowdown was happening in the global area, the crude oil production in Latin America, the exports started reducing. So when the exports started reducing, whatever foreign exchange reserves they had in the country, they started depleting because they had to import everything. So after a while, what really happened was that since the foreign reserves was getting depleted, the government started printing currency to have a better exchange with other countries. So since the dependence on imports was so high and the supply reduced, the demand picked up and it led to a hyperinflation. So this is a brief story about what happened in Venezuela. I want all of you to go and have a look at the documentary and you will understand how the crisis is. In India, this won't happen because we have a very conservative setup and we have the Reserve Bank of India. And Reserve Bank of India will never go and print currency to increase the money supply, and that will be the last resort. And the Reserve Bank of India will be questioned by the government if anything is being that. And again, the government in India is democracy, and here we have a strong opposition. If the opposition is there, they will question the government in this regard. And all this scenario will make that the Reserve Bank of India will control the money supply and will always ensure, because the main purpose of RBI is to control the inflation. And RBI's role is to control the inflation to be 4% plus or minus 2%. if it crosses 3 consecutive quarters, then RBI has to tell the government what is the reason about why the inflation has gone up. So this is the kind of tight setup that we have in India to control inflation. So what happened in Venezuela will not happen in India. Hope you got it. And we will also be looking into what happened in USA in 2008 that caused a very big problem across the world. And the impact is seen even now. It is called as subprime mortgage crisis. What is that? We will see later. So in all these cases, if you see, the central banks, if they do not perform their role properly, this is a cause and effect, right? I hope you understood. So these are the 4 types of inflation based on percentage. So we have to be at an optimal rate of 3 to 10%, right? Next is inflation based on causes. When you talk about causes, we have 2 types of inflation: demand pull inflation and cost push inflation. So as the name says, if let us say I have a pen, again the same example. If I have a pen and I am the only one having a pen, and all of you need a pen to write, so I will tell students the pen is 10 rupees each, and whoever can afford it can come and buy it. So assume every one of you can afford 10 rupees. So all of you will come to me asking for pen. So what I will do, I will tell that since I am the only one having the pen, I want to increase the price of the pen and I'll sell it at 15 rupees. Now here if you see, the cost of the pen is increasing consistently because the demand for the pen is very high. So if the inflation is occurring due to the demand, if the inflation is being pulled up due to the demand, it is called as demand pull inflation. On the other hand, let us say one of your students want a pen for yourself. Did you all understand demand pull inflation? Due to the demand, if the inflation is being pulled, that is called as demand pull inflation. Then when you take cost push inflation, so assume that let us say one of you students come and ask me, sir, I want a pen, but not made in India. I want a pen made in Italy. So I will go and get the pen made in Italy. So when I go to Italy, Italy is not a country which is into manufacturing much. So I'll get the pen done. But the same pen which is costing in India 10 rupees, in Italy it will cost me 40 rupees to make it. So here if you see why the cost of the pen is increasing, the cost of the pen is increasing because of the factors of production: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur. But if the same pen I'm getting it manufactured in China, I'll be able to get it manufactured in 3 rupees. So here if you see, the inflation in the second scenario is being pushed because of increase in costs. So if due to cost, if the inflation is increasing, that is called as cost push inflation. So students, here the focus right now in India, the situation is we have inflation due to cost push inflation and not to demand pull inflation. So we want to make it demand pull inflation, because if it is a demand pull inflation, we can surely supply effectively and balance the inflation. But if push inflation, it is important for the government to take active measures to reduce the cost. And there are policy initiatives taken by the government to reduce the cost push inflation. So for example, if the government is setting up a road in a village, even that is a measure to tackle cost push inflation, because when a road is there, it will be easy to transport the products, and that in turn leads to reduced costs, leading to reduced inflation. So there are many policy initiatives that the government is taking, which we'll be seeing later on, to reduce cost push inflation. Hope you all got it. That means increase in purchasing power of consumer. Nitin is asking a question. Don't look at it that way, Nitin. Just focus on why the prices are increasing. Why the prices are increasing. In cost push inflation, due to factors of production, the prices are increasing. But if no one is able to, then no one will produce also. Hope you got it. Is it clear, students, till now? Any doubts on this slide? Nitin, I hope I'm clear.
Sir.
Yeah. Kritika,
So the
yes.
inflation percentage that is calculated, it is based on quarter or yearly basis?
No, it is monthly basis. The inflation is calculated on a monthly basis. We will come to that. We will understand how the inflation is calculated in the further slides. Every month on month basis, it is calculated. See, for example, if February 2000, let's say if it is February 2020, the inflation will not be calculated based on January 2020. No, February 2020 will be compared with February 2019. Why am I doing it? Because each month has its own behavior. See, for example, we have Dashera starting on 19th, right? So we have Dashera starting on 19th of October, and when Dashera is starting, immediately the spending of the people will improve because the festive season is there. If I compare it with previous month, it appears like there's a drastic inflation. Isn't that wrong? So we will always compare October of this year to October of last year to check what is the inflation rise on a set commodities. Kritika, I hope you understood. It's a monthly calculation.
Yes.
Arpit, you have any doubt?
Yes, so the question, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, in the cost push inflation, sir, the example which you quoted, sir, in which you told about a pen, sir, being manufactured in Italy, sir, and thereby the prices being rising for the pen, sir. Sir, isn't it same for the import also, sir? Any import which a country is doing, these things are made outside only, sir. So, but by importing, they are curtailing inflation, sir. This is
you are complexing the topic. I'm just giving a general topic here where if I am getting it manufactured in a country which has high costs, automatically my cost will increase. For example, don't go beyond my example. Arpit, hope you understood. See, when I'm importing, why will I import from a country which is costly? I will always import from a country which is cheaper for me, right?
Right, sir. Right. Thank you, sir.
Okay, this is a general tendency. Just limit my example to what I have said. Don't go beyond and thinking beyond it. Okay, no one will get their pen manufactured in Italy. It's a hypothetical scenario I'm telling you. Everyone will be interested to get it manufactured in a place where it is less cost. Right? Okay. Aman has asked a question. Toys from China are cheaper than those made in India. Aman, yes. Everything is cheap in China because their manufacturing capability is so high. Okay. Yeah. Nitin, cost push inflation refers to if the cost of a product is increasing due to increase in factors of production, that is land, labor, capital, entrepreneur, such type of an inflation is called as cost push inflation. Hope you got it. See, a very simple example of a cost push inflation is if you go to a hotel and buy your favorite dish. Why is the cost of the product increasing? The cost of the product increasing is because the raw material cost is increasing. That is cost push inflation. Right? Now, why are the gold prices increasing? If you look at the gold prices increase, it's not because gold is a commodity and it is giving value. No. Gold is a limited commodity on planet Earth. And because of gold, the demand for gold is high and the supply is less. That is leading to demand pull inflation in gold. Hope you got it. Yes, crude oil too. When crude oil is limited in supply and demand is high, that leads to demand pull inflation. Hope you got it. So due to demand, if the prices are increasing, that is called as demand pull inflation. And due to increase in cost, if the inflation is increasing, that is called as cost push inflation. If you take food inflation for in India, the food inflation in India is increasing. First, also due to demand, and the second is due to the deficiencies in the agricultural supply chain. And the supply is less, the demand is more, leading to demand pull inflation in agriculture. Hope you got it. We will be discussing the agricultural issues later, but till now, I hope it is clear. Aman, I didn't understand your point. Why is less faith in stock market? I didn't get your point, Aman. Never write such words. Yeah, absolutely. Nitin, monopoly is also results in cost push inflation. And monopoly will, yeah, okay. Yeah, students, I hope it is clear. Good. Any other doubts?
Sir,
In this, yeah, Meenu, yes.
yes, sir. If the crude oil prices in the international market is higher, so we are importing at a higher price.
Yes.
Then in our country also, it will go up petrol prices and diesel prices.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It will
Everything
indirectly
will be
impact
costlier.
the inflation of the products, goods, food, etc. due to transport cost.
Yes, absolutely. Meenu, you rightly pointed out. We
Then
are
it will
dependent on
come
our
into
crude oil
the,
imports.
yes, sir. Then it will come into the cost push inflation.
Yes, absolutely. You're right.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Why is it costly in India to manufacture something? It is because we are dependent on our energy needs, which is imported. And that is the reason why we are working upon our clean energy. If you see, 10 nuclear light water reactors have been given permission in India to be set up in Kovara district in Andhra Pradesh. We are going for nuclear energy, even though if you see Japan, if you see France, they were running their energy in nuclear energy, and now they are closing down their nuclear reactors. But we are introducing 10 new nuclear reactors in our country. So this is the question that we need to ask is, why is India going towards nuclear energy, though it is risky? And one of the possible reasons that you can give is India wants to reduce its dependence on imports of crude oil and promote clean energy. I'm giving an example there. Hope you got the link. Yeah. Okay. So I hope this is clear. Going next. The next is measures to control inflation. So students, we saw what are the factors affecting demand, factors affecting supply, what is the effects of inflation, and what are the different types of inflation. Now, what are the measures to control inflation? We can divide the measures into three types. One is called monetary measure, second is fiscal measure, and third is administrative measure. When I say monetary measure, whenever you come across the term called monetary policy, monetary measures, it means money. Measures related to control of money. These are called as monetary measures. So when it comes to fiscal measures, whenever you come across the term called fiscal, it means expenditure. Right? Fiscal is expenditure. When you say fiscal deficit, it means deficit in the expenditure. And then administrative measures is it's related to administration. So let us try to see what are these measures one by one. So if you look at the measures to control inflation, the monetary measure, the first one is credit control. So what is meant by credit? Credit means loan. Controlling on the loan given to the people is called as credit control. So how is the credit control being done? The credit control is being done through monetary policy. We will touch upon this again later. So we understood that during inflation, what should be the ideal policy? Should it be cheap monetary policy or dear monetary policy? Can I have an answer? During inflation, to control inflation, what should we have? Dear monetary policy or cheap monetary policy? Excellent. We have to have a dear monetary policy, because having a dear monetary policy, we will be able to control the money supply. So when we're able to control the money supply, we can control the inflation. We had a discussion about this concept previously. So yeah, going ahead. So we'll not go deep now. We will touch upon this as a part of the chapter money markets. We will revisit this as a part of money markets. Then the second monetary measure is demonetization of currency. Yeah, you would have come across this demonetization word since all of us went through this issue. So what is this demonetization? So students, in India, demonetization was taken up where they removed 1000 rupee note and 500 rupee note, and they introduced 2000 rupee note and new 500 rupee note. So when 1000 rupee note and 500 rupee note was removed, 86% of the currency in India was removed. So that is how the domination of this currency was. So 138 crore people were depending on just 14% of the currency available. That was the scenario a few years back when demonetization was taken up. Now, what the government told when demonetization taken up was, they told that due to demonetization, we can tackle corruption, we can tackle black money, we can tackle fake currency, and we can build cashless economy. So these were the reasons they had told. But if you are an economic student, you have to understand that due to demonetization, you cannot solve any of these issues. This is a point you have to clearly note. Because the purpose of demonetization of currency is to reduce inflation. So how can we reduce inflation due to demonetization when the currency is demonetized? See what happened when 1000 rupee note and 500 rupee note was removed. What happened in India was the GDP came down by 2%. It came by 2%. That's huge. It's like the health budget of our country. So a possible consequence of demonetization is reduction of inflation, because demonetization leads to reduced money flow. So in this regard, demonetization is a term used for controlling inflation and cannot do anything else. But why did government tell that it can tackle corruption, it can tackle black money, is because the government assumed that the black money in India is in the form of cash. But what RBI report has highlighted that the black money in India in the form of cash, according to RBI, is just 6%. And the remaining black money is not in the form of cash, but it is in the form of real estate, money transactions. So that was highlighted. But that is a separate issue. We'll discuss it later. But here a point to be noted is, when demonetization of currency is taken up, the inflation can be controlled. And it can be followed by remonetization, by issue of new currency. So in India, if you see, now very soon, they will be removing 2000 rupee note. Okay, they'll be removing 2000 rupee note. And here if you see, the new currencies that were introduced was 200 rupee note. 200 rupee note was introduced because any middle class family in India every day spends around 200 rupees. So 200 rupee note usage is much higher. So when you introduce a lower currency and remove the higher currency, we can reduce the money flow and control inflation. So these are some of the measures related to monetary measure. And the most important is credit control, right? So students, any doubts?
I didn't understand that introducing of lower currency. What did you say? I didn't get it.
Yeah.
Can you please
see, when lower currency is introduced, when I remove the higher currency and lower currency is introduced, here the money flow in the economy will reduce. That's the way of reducing the money flow. So when money flow in the economy is reduced, that in turn controls inflation. Hope you got it. Sthita Pragyan?
But sir, if a higher currency is removed and a lower currency is...
Your doubt is, if the money flow, if you give 2000 rupee note to the bank, and if the bank gives you, let us say, 10 notes of 200 rupees, how can the money flow reduce? That's the question, right? Yes. I completely understood your point. Here I'm talking about a macroeconomic scale. In a macroeconomy, if there is a lot of money flowing in the economy, they can demonetize the currency and they can introduce a lower currency, or they can issue a currency at a lower rate and reduce the money flow. That's what I'm saying. So you have to look at it at an angle where the money flow in the economy is coming down. That's also one of the measures to control inflation. Is that clear?
You are now unmuted.
So can you give an example?
Which one? Regarding what?
You are now unmuted.
Which you explained now.
The issue of new currency?
You are now unmuted.
Okay. Now again, see, when it comes to, again, that's what I'm saying. In India scenario, students, if you see, we had to see here, this scenario of issue of new currency is, see, for example, if you take, let us say in an economy, a lot of money is flowing. Let us assume 10 lakh crore is the transactions happening in the economy, leading to a particular X percentage of inflation. So the government has to reduce this money. So what they can do, the first step is they can demonetize this. They can demonetize this value of the currency and bring it down and introduce a new form of a currency where it, instead of 10 lakh crore, it will be just 5 lakh crore running in the economy. I am getting your doubt that you are feeling that it's the same currency moving around. How can it reduce inflation? That's what I'm saying. Don't think of it at an individual level, but think of it at a macroeconomic scale. So when new currency of a lower denomination is introduced, the money flow in the economy is coming down and not going up. Hope you got it.
Sir?
Yes, Nikhil? Yes.
Sir, that means
Nikhil?
whatever the government did, that demonetization in order to get reduce the black money, that is all not useful, sir. That is all fair, you know.
Do you think
was
black money is reduced in India?
No, sir, it didn't reduce.
Yeah, then how do you think demonetization helped it? If you see, I have some questions here. Mithali, when I say demonetization, as the name says, it is removing the value out of that currency is called as demonetization. The 1,000 rupee note is no more, cannot be monetized. That is, you cannot buy anything with the 1,000 rupee note. That means it has been demonetized. Hope you got it. Kritika, when demonetization is taken up, inflation will come down because you will not have the currency to transact in the economy. The demand will come down, leading to reduced inflation. Aman, what did you understand? You can tell me. Okay.
Issue of new currency.
Aman, what didn't you understand?
सर मेरे को ये नहीं समझ आया कि नई करेंसी इशू करने से पहली बात तो आप कह रहे हो जैसे 10 लाख करोड़ जिन्होंने डिमोनेटाइज करे तो 10 लाख करोड़ ही तो वापस इशू करेंगे.
Again, Aman, that's what I'm saying. Don't connect demonetization and issue of currency right now. Both are separate. See, when I have to control the inflation, when a government can go on issuing new currency and can go on removing the higher currency in the economy so that the money flow has to reduce. This is also one of the measures sometimes the countries take to reduce the inflation when the inflation in the economy is very high. You are looking at in the case of India, but if you take the case of any other country, like for example, you talk about Venezuela right now, they removed their currency altogether and they have introduced their own new currency and issued a new currency at a lower denomination. Aman, I hope you understood. So when new currency of a lower denomination is introduced, even that can help in controlling inflation. Aman, I hope it is clear.
Sir, अगर lower denomination है, but total amount तो वही है, तो money flow कैसे होगा?
वो नहीं होता है. That's what I'm saying here. See here, I'm not exchanging the currency here. I am issuing a new currency of a lower denomination altogether. Hope you got it. See, this is a different scenario altogether. You should look at it from the macroeconomic scale here. And this is also one of the measures taken. Whenever, if I want to reduce the economic scale that is happening, this scenario hasn't happened anywhere. The remonetization has happened anywhere much. So, but the remonetization measure, if here again looking at a macro scale, students understand this macro scale. In this macro scale, when the money flow is reducing due to denomination of a lesser value being introduced, that in turn will reduce the inflation. I understand all of your doubt that the money flow remains the same. No, on a macroeconomic scale, this money flow will reduce when there is a new currency of a lower denomination introduced, because there are many institutions operating and the money value will also keep varying. Okay. You will understand this in the further slides as in when we go. But here a point to be understood here is when it comes to controlling inflation, we can control the inflation with reduced currency flow or reduced money supply. Right? RBI has this thing called money market aggregates. You will read about it later. Money market aggregates. Based on this money market aggregates, it will understand what is the business economy that is expanding. And according to the expansion of the economy, the government will keep on printing new currency. And this currency that the government is printing, it will be printing lesser denomination of currency. And when lesser denomination of currency of a lesser value is being introduced, it in turn controls inflation. So whatever is the new currency that the RBI is introducing, it will slow it down. So when it slows it down, automatically the inflation in the economy will be controlled. Aman, now did you understand?
Yes sir. Initially जो money flow है वो कम हो जाएगा.
Yes, absolutely.
Initially inflation
Okay.
जो है वो कम हो जाएगा.
Correct. Yes. So this is the monetary measures to control inflation. So in UPSC, a question can be asked as to which of these measures are monetary measures. Anything related to the money supply is called as monetary measures. Right? Okay. Going next. So the next one is measures to control inflation, which is fiscal measures. So for example, the first measure is reduction in unnecessary expenditure. So government can reduce its unnecessary expenditure. So we understood that when public expenditure is less, automatically we can reduce inflation. We read this. Let me give you an example. Have you all heard this scheme called Ujjwala Yojana? How many of you have heard of it? What is it related to? Ujjwala Yojana. Ujjwala Yojana. What is Ujjwala Yojana related to? Exactly. Excellent, Arpit. It is related to providing LPG cylinders to BPL households. Okay. So what is the use of this scheme? How can we reduce the public expenditure through Ujjwala Yojana? Let us understand this. See, first of all, if you see the need aspect of it, on one hand, we had women, rural women, who are suffering and dying due to internal pollution. So they are suffering due to internal pollution. Where do they go due to internal pollution? They go to government hospital. Who spends for government hospital? Government will spend for government hospital. Correct? So expenditure is happening here. Second, if you see, the government is giving LPG subsidy. But is the subsidy going to the right BPL people? No. The subsidy is taken by even the above poverty line people. And people who have income more than 10 lakh also were taking LPG subsidy. So here the government noticed that we have to reduce the unnecessary expenditure. If you see, for hospitals also they are doing the expenditure, and LPG subsidy also there is a lot of leakage happening. So how can we reduce this internal pollution? Why is this internal pollution happening? Due to use of wood as a fuel for cooking. So in rural areas, when they use wood for cooking, what happens? In the chest, you will have PM 2.5, particulate matter 2.5, and particulate matter 10 will be deposited, due to which respiratory issues will happen. So to reduce the internal pollution, we have to provide clean fuel to women. So in this regard, what government did? Government introduced previously what is called as JAM. What is JAM? Jandan Yojana and mobile. The JAM Trinity was introduced to tackle the subsidy leakage. So first what they did was, the government asked all the poor people to register under Jandan Yojana. So accounts were opened with the bank. Then through Aadhaar card, they were able to verify the beneficiaries, and whoever were duplicate, they were able to remove them. And third, what happened, we even had Amitabh Bachchan come and told about Subsidy Chodo campaign, where they told that if you are above poverty line, please leave the subsidy. So we had a campaign by Amitabh Bachchan, if you have seen. Then mobile was introduced, where all the updates were given through the mobile. So Jandan Yojana, Aadhaar and mobile phone, this jam trinity was used to avoid the subsidy leakage. And whatever was the subsidy that was saved, they used it to provide LPG connection to women. They provided one stove and one LPG cylinder to the BPL households. So this way, through Ujjwala Yojana, they were able to tackle the leakage and they were able to provide subsidy to women and thereby reduce the unnecessary expenditure. Did you all understand this example? Did you all understand this example? So this is called as policy or comprehensive policy making. So when a policy is done, it should have an impact on multiple areas. I'll give you one more example. Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, toilets are set up. When toilets are set up, what will happen? First is open defecation will come down. When open defecation comes down, children dying due to diarrhea will come down. So there are a lot of children suffering with diarrhea and dying due to diarrhea due to lack of clean water. So by having toilets, we can reduce the death of children due to diarrhea. So there is a link between every action taken by the policy. Yeah. Yes, Nitin, public distribution system is also a public expenditure. A lot of subsidy is given out for food, but the subsidy, is it reaching the people or not? That's the question. So the point to need to drive home is reduction in unnecessary expenditure also leads to controlling inflation. That is, less money flow leads to control inflation, right? So next point, increase in direct taxes and decrease in indirect taxes. How can it control inflation? See, I'll give you an example. When I say direct tax, I mean income tax. See, on your income tax, if I'm charging more, see, let's say you are earning 1 lakh and you have to pay 10% interest, that is 10,000 rupees. So that means your disposable income is 90,000 rupees. So with 90,000, you used to dispose the income. So assume instead of 10%, I make your interest 30%. Now you have to pay 30,000. How much you are left with? 70,000. Isn't your disposable income coming down? So when your income tax is increasing, when there is an increase in direct taxes, the disposable income comes down. It leads to controlling inflation. On the other hand, we should always decrease indirect taxes, because if you go and buy a biscuit packet, we have what is called MRP, maximum retail price. Is MRP inclusive of tax or exclusive of tax? Can someone answer? Is it inclusive of tax or exclusive of tax?
Inclusive.
Yes, it's inclusive of tax. So here you pay the shopkeeper the biscuit money, and the shopkeeper in turn will pay the government, correct? That is why it is called indirect tax. So always we have to decrease the indirect tax to control inflation, because if the indirect tax is high, the MRP increases. And if MRP increases, it leads to inflation. So direct taxes should increase and indirect taxes should decrease. And right now, when it comes to indirect tax, we have only one tax, what is called as GST, Goods and Services Tax. We'll touch upon this later in public finance chapter. But here, when a question is asked, during inflation, direct taxes should be increased, indirect taxes should be decreased. Is it clear till now? Yeah. So this is the next thing. So the next thing is, now that this is clear, the next question, next fiscal measure is surplus budget. So in India, students, if you see, budget of India or budget of the government is different from our budget. See, how do our budget works? Your parents will give you pocket money, and based on the income that you are getting from your parents, you will plan your expenditure, correct? But for the government budget works in a different way. The government will first plan its expenditure, and based on the expenditure, it will plan its income. And this income can be through tax or even through non-tax. So first expenditure and then income. So in India, if you see, the expenditure is always more than income. And that is why we call our budget deficit budget. We call our budget deficit budget. That is, we have always expenditure more than income. And why do we have expenditure more than income? Because whatever income, whatever expenditure we are doing it for the welfare of the people. So our government is a welfare government. So our government is a welfare government. So if you see, our government is a welfare government.
So I have a doubt.
Yes.
So when our expenditure is more and income is less, and our government is having a deficit budget, then how, from where did the government introduce 20,000 crore rupees for this? Last time it introduced
20 lakh crore.
Yeah, 20 lakh crore. From where did the government introduce that money?
Exactly. Here there is a lot of mechanism involved there. It could be with respect to market borrowing. It could be even with respect to the budgetary resources, and there are many sources are there. That's a different topic altogether. And students, you need to note here that the government has unlimited spending capacity, because whatever is the expenditure the government has, it will earn its income, and the income can be earned through taxes and also through non-tax sources, or it could be even due to loans. So it can borrow the loans from international organizations through domestic sourcing and many more. So always the budget deficit, that is expenditure income, will always be zero. Whatever is the expenditure, the government will find the sources to cater to its expenditure, right? So the pregnant, you don't worry about the sources there. We will the 20 lakh crore. The 20 lakh crore is being debated here, but the 20 lakh crore fiscal stimulus is provided based on the resources the government has. Hope you got it. Because we are
okay, sir. We have got it.
$3.2 trillion economy. We are a $3.2 trillion economy, and we have the resources. But what I'm trying to tell you is that more than its income, the expenditure of the government will always be higher because we have a deficit budget. See, every year we have a budget coming out, and the budget will plan out all its expenditure and then will go for its income. Kindly note this. So the expenditure will be planned, and meeting this expenditure is the purpose of the government, right? I hope you got it. So when I say surplus budget, what do I mean? The surplus budget is there because the expenditure is not being done by the government. So when the expenditure is not being done by the government, it leads to controlled inflation. I hope you got it. So surplus budget is also a measure to control inflation. But in India, we do not have a surplus budget. We always have a deficit budget. Right? Is it clear, students, that one? Yeah. So the next measure to control inflation is called as trade measure. So when I say trade measures, I mean, when I say trade measures, so students, if you see, when there is inflation in the economy, the government can increase the export duty of a commodity, can increase the export duty. So when it increases the export duty, what happens? The trade measure, the more supply will be created. And when more supply is created in the domestic market, it leads to controlling inflation. So that is the trade measure we are talking about here. Okay. So whatever is the measures taken by the government to control the trade, that is called as trade measures. So all these can be classified under fiscal measures. Hope you got it. Yeah. Nitin has asked a question. Why the cutting of salaries during lockdown? Can you tell me the scenario, Nitin? Yeah. Soumya, when I say trade measures, I'm giving you one example. There are many examples there for trade measures. Trade measures refers to whatever is the measures taken for the prices of the trade to come down. That is called as trade measures. Example, if onion prices have to come down, they can reduce the exports and increase the domestic supply, leading to reduced price of the onion. That is a trade measure. Is it clear? Soumya? Okay. Nitin, salaries are coming down during lockdown. Can anyone answer this question? Why are salaries coming down during lockdown? Can anyone answer this question? Unmute and tell me the answer. It's okay. Why is salaries being cut during lockdown? Simple answer. Yes, income of the firm is low. Why is the income of the firm low? Because there is no demand. When there is no demand, no production. When there is no production, there is no job or less income. Hope you got it. Right? Good. Very good. You are able to link it correctly. Yes. Any other doubts, students? In fiscal measures.
Sir, in the Ujjwal scheme and Swachh Bharat Abhiyan schemes, sir, on those measures, there will we say that there will be an increase in inflation, and then at a later point the inflation will be controlled because the government will be
Yes, absolutely, exactly. So, students, if you see last year, the deficit target was 3.3%, but the government increased it to 3.5%. Now, when someone asked, why are you spending more? The government told that we are spending more and we know that the expenditure is increasing, leading to inflation. But we are spending this on agriculture. They told this. We are spending this on agriculture. When agriculture infrastructure is strong, automatically we will be able to improve the supply to meet the demand and inflation will come down. Yes, initial expenditure. This is called as capital expenditure. When the expenditure is made in the economy, when assets are being created, that is good to the economy. Correct question.
Thank you.
Understood? Okay. So next is, after we understood about the fiscal measures, the next is what is called as administrative measures. What is this administrative measures? Measures taken on the front of our administration side is called as administrative measures. Very simple measures. For example, there are many measures here. I've just pointed out two. That is rational wage policy. So students, we always have a rational wage policy. For example, in the government, we have what is called as pay commission. Pay commissions, which are appointed once in 10 years. It's appointed once in 10 years to analyze the pay of the government servants. So the pay commission will come and analyze the pay and always include the inflation into consideration to decide the pay. See, why do they consider inflation into consideration for deciding the pay is because when there is too much wage provided, the spending will increase. When spending increases, inflation increases. I'll give you an example. If you are working with SBI, this you can relate it better, State Bank of India, you get what is called as HRA, house rent allowance. So if you are in Mumbai, the HRA is higher. Whereas if you are in Hyderabad, the HRA is less. Why? Because in Mumbai, renting a 2 BHK, you have to pay a minimum of 35 to 40,000 rupees. Whereas in Hyderabad, a 2 BHK will come for 10 to 15,000 rupees. So based on the economy, the inflation of that particular city, even the wage is decided. Similarly, in the government also, similar mechanisms are there to decide on the pay commission. By the pay commissions, they will always consider inflation to keep into consideration a rational wage policy. So when wages are rational, inflation will be controlled. If wages are irrational, inflation will increase. That can be seen in the case of MGNREGA, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Program, where wages are provided at a higher rate, because of which rural inflation has picked up, affecting the poor. Diksha, you have any doubt? Diksha? Okay, yeah. So next one is what is called as price control. So students, if you see price control, we have many measures to control the prices. For example, they can put an upper limit for sale of a commodity. Or, for example, this can be seen with respect to food prices. So when the food prices are high, the government will procure through a mechanism called MSP, minimum support price. So it will procure the commodities through minimum support price and sell it to the people at a lesser rate. So it will sell it to the people at a subsidy. That is called as price control. So administrative measures to control inflation. So when an upper limit is set for the prices not to cross, that kind of a measure is called as price control. Did you all understand what is MSP, minimum support price? Kindly acknowledge. Okay, see how does the food security in our country work is, we have what is called as ration shops, PDS, public distribution system. So the Food Corporation of India will procure the commodities at MSP, minimum support price, and this grains will be supplied to PDS, public distribution system, which is sold at a lesser price than the market. So if the people feel that they find the market to be costly, they will come and buy the products in PDS, public distribution system. So students, these are the different measures that you can see to control inflation. So we have administrative measures, we have fiscal measures, and we also have monetary measures. I hope it is clear till now. Now, with this understanding, let us try to answer a question. Students, take a moment and answer this question. This is a question asked in prelims. With reference to inflation, which of the following statements is correct? Kindly post your answer in the chat box. This is a question asked in prelims. With reference to inflation, which of the following statements are correct? Excellent. Wonderful. Wonderful. So let us go and analyze what is the answer. First statement, controlling inflation is the responsibility of the government of India. Can anyone tell me why is this statement correct or wrong? Excellent. It is both RBI and government. But students, understand this. Controlling inflation is the responsibility of Government of India, not alone the Government of India. It is the Government of India plus RBI, because both RBI and Government of India is handling the demand and supply side of the economy. They're handling both demand and supply side of the economy. And both Monetary Policy Committee is also both RBI and government. The second statement is RBI has no role in controlling inflation. It is wrong. Now C and D. If you see C and D, decreased money circulation helps in controlling inflation and increased money circulation helps in controlling inflation. We understood that whenever there is inflation, we have to remove the money from the economy. And whenever there is deflation, we have to pump the money back into the economy. So decreased money circulation helps in controlling the inflation. So C is the correct answer. I hope you understood now. So this is a question asked in prelims in the previous years, and this is the kind of application that you all need. Excellent that all of you have answered the question. That means I can be sure that you all have understood the concept. So if you look at the A option, student, if let us say C option was not given, sometimes they will tell you the question as, with reference to inflation, choose the most appropriate answer and assume option C is not given. So that time option A will be correct. because they are not saying that controlled inflation is the responsibility only of Government of India. They have just told controlled inflation is the responsibility of Government of India. So it's partially correct, but not wrong. But here we always need to choose what is the most appropriate answer. So the most appropriate answer is C. So we have gone for C. I hope you all understood. So this is the kind of questions they're asking in UPSC. The questions are not difficult, but your presence of mind is what is being checked in the exam. And this is not something where you need to remember anything. It's all about application of your concepts and coming to the right answer. So students, whenever you're solving the question, the game is not to find the right answer. The game is to eliminate the wrong answer. This should be the perspective that you need to go with. Identify what are the wrong statements, eliminate them, and you'll come to the right answer. I hope you got it. So this is how, whenever we are reading, we have to see the concept, link it to current affairs, and also see what are the previous year papers related to the concept. So this way, we will be able to answer the questions and check whether our preparation is going right or not. I hope it is clear. Is it clear? Excellent. So let's go ahead. Now that I am sure that you all have understood, let's go ahead. So the next important thing that we are touching upon today, I'll touch upon one of the concepts today, that is measurement of inflation. How is inflation measured? So all this while we understood about what is inflation, demand and supply, factors affecting demand, factors affecting supply, the effects of inflation, and also measures to control inflation. Now let us try to see how to measure inflation. So whenever you're measuring anything, we use an index. Index is nothing but it's a base. It's a specialized average which is designed to measure the relative change in a phenomenon. So here we have different indices: Human Development Index, Ease of Doing Business Index, many more. So index is a specialized average. It's a statistical average used to measure a relative change in a phenomenon. So for inflation, we use an index called as the price index. If you see the price index, it is the index measuring the relative change over a period of time. So always the price index formula is what is the current year divided by base year price. Current year price divided by base year price into 100. So what is this base year? Now base year is a year which the government considers as the most neutral year, and that is considered as a base year. For example, right now the base year is 2011 and 12. So based on the base year and what is the price of the current year into 100 will give a percentage increase called as a price index. Hope you got it. So always the price index is used in calculating inflation, and the index will always be measured as a percentage. It will be measured as a percentage. Hope you got it. Yeah. How to decide base year? Nitin, the Central Statistical Organization takes into consideration a varied parameters and considers a year where it is very neutral and where it is not inflated or affected by any event. And the prices of the commodities during that year will be considered as a base year. And that's how it will be base year. And this base year, a few years back, 2011 and 12, before base year was 2003 and 4. And now the base year, they're planning to have the base year as 2017 and 18. Right? So they want to change the base year and reference year regularly to keep the index much more accurate. Hope you got it. Yeah. So this is with respect to price index and index. So the next is, once we understood about this, when it comes to measurement of inflation, we have three types of indices. First, before we understand about these indices, let us first understand how a product will reach a customer. So students, here we have what is called as producer, one who produces the commodities, or at the agriculture level, we have a farmer. Then from the producer, this commodity will go to the wholesaler. Agreed? Wholesale market it will go. In case of agriculture, the farmer will go to a mandi and put his products. And from a wholesaler, it will either reach to a customer or a retailer. It will go to a retailer or it can reach to a customer. Right? So this is how the product transfers from one place to another. Agreed? Transfers to one place to another. So students, if you see, at the producer level, we will get to know what is the cost involved by a producer to produce a particular product. So the factors of production involved and what is the value involved in producing a product. In case of a farmer, how much is a farmer incurring as expenditure to produce a particular agricultural commodity is calculated at the level of producers. Then what happens when the producers will come and deposit the product in the wholesale level? In the wholesale level, whatever is the prices involved, we'll get to know at the wholesale level. And from the wholesale level, we have many retailers who will purchase the products and take it. Now here, if you see, there are a lot of middlemen here. There is what is called as middlemen. Middlemen. The students, if you see, a farmer will produce the commodity at a less price and will sell it at mandi. But at mandi, whatever is the price bought at mandi, from mandi, we have a lot of middlemen who sell it to the retailers or customers. Now here, if you see, the middlemen in India are making more money and the customer is not benefited. Farmer is also not benefited. So this is a case that is happening in India. So government is taking measures here to control the middlemen or to reduce the middlemen. So this is a context. Now here, students, if you see, the index that is measuring the prices of a commodity at the retailer level or at the consumer level is called as consumer price index. The index that is measuring the prices of a commodity at the wholesale level or mandi level is called as wholesale price index. And the index that is measuring the prices at the producer level is called as producer price index. So students, if you see, the producer's price index in India has been proposed, but still not yet introduced. The question is, why it is not introduced? Why are we depending on wholesale price index and consumer price index? So students, if you see, any answers, any guesses why producer price index is not yet introduced in India when the entire world is doing it? Any guesses? Why? Any answers? Yeah, let it be different for different places. We'll get to know the prices, right? Why is the producer's price index not calculated in India?
So because of the influence of wholesaler in the Indian market, influence of middlemen in Indian market.
No, middlemen will come here. See, if I want to know, he'll come here. My question is, why is producer price index not calculated in India? We have CPI calculated, we have WPI calculated. Why not PPI? Very simple. The reason is we don't have data. We don't have data. A farmer will not put in his books how much he has actually spent on his produce. And there are many farmers who are not even a part of the banking system. The producers, there are many producers who are producing the goods, but the data is not sent to the government. So because of lack of data, we will not be able to find out in India's case the producer's price index. But once the goods come to the wholesale market, this area has well documentation of prices of a commodity at which it has been bought. So this is a place where we'll get to know what is the price of the commodity being sold. Here our calculation starts. But right now, when it comes to calculating inflation, we are using the consumer price index and not the wholesale price index. Why it is, you will see in the first steps. But here if you see, the producer's price index is not calculated in India yet. The Economic Survey 2016 has pointed out that we need to introduce producer price index, but it is not calculated because we don't have the required data. But we are working on introducing the data collection in these sectors. With that, we will be introducing producer price index. And students, if you see, why do we need producer price index? Because we need producer price index because at the producer level, if the inflation is low, we will be able to attract investments into our country. Hope you got it. So at the producer level, we have to keep our costs optimum. And when we get to know what is the level of land, labor, capital, entrepreneur, we will be able to attract more investments into the country. Hope you got it. Any doubts? Mitali, yes, farmers bill is a different thing altogether. The farm bill is a different issue altogether. Need not connect it there. Yeah, Aryan, yes.
Mostly, like you said, we don't keep the data in the producer level. Is it one of the reason is that because in India we usually practice traditional farming and usually the producer consume what he is produced, and it is like it is not mostly used for commercial purpose. It is also used for household purposes. Is that because of that?
No. That's partially there, but see here I'm talking about those people who are selling their produce in the market. So if you see in India, 86% of the farmers, understand this, 86% of the farmers are marginal farmers. That means they have only around 2 to 3 acres of land, not more than that. That is how small land they have. Now, what is the level of education they have? What is the level of exposure they have to maintain the records? No, they don't have it. So because at the level of farmers, we don't have the data, we are unable to identify at the level. See, if onion prices are increasing, why can't the government know earlier itself that the onion prices is picking up? Again, the problem is lack of data availability. So at the wholesale level is an indicator as to what a commodity price is. So government has to take immediate action at the wholesale level itself. But still, again, the supply constraints are always there. This onion prices, if you see every year, you will have onion prices where, let us say, tomato will touch 100 rupees per kg, and sometimes tomato prices will touch even 1 rupee per kg. And farmers will throw it on the road and go. Why is that problem repeating again and again? It's because the lack of data at the producer level and lack of proper action, proactive action taken at the wholesale level.
Okay, sir, got it.
Are you understood? So here you need not relate it to subsistence farming. Here we are only talking about selling of the produce in the market.
Yes, sir, got it.
Any other doubts? Yeah. So any other doubts, students? Understood till now? We will be touching upon now in the next class. We will be touching upon what is wholesale price index and what is consumer price index in detail. We'll be touching upon what is wholesale price index and what is consumer price index. So right now, if a question is asked relating to producer price index, the answer is it is still not introduced. So the question that can be asked in UPSC is, which authority is responsible for calculating producer price index? If such a question is asked, the answer is wrong. A producer price index is not yet been introduced, right? People, when it comes to the farm bill, we will be discussing in detail during the chapter on agriculture. And see here, whenever a bill is introduced, here end of the day, understand this. Always we need to have a win-win situation. Win-win situation. Okay. Now, farmers should be benefited and customers should be benefited. Government should be benefited. All of them should be benefited. And that is how a bill has to be formed. So farmers have an issue that they might be affected due to the bill. So these concerns, if it is addressed by the government, and a bill can be, we can't scrap the bill, obviously. Always our economy is affected to change oriented. See, when 1991, when we had to open up the economy, when we took up LPG reforms, liberalization, privatization, and globalization, everyone was scared. What will happen to our economy if we open up? But today, if you see, after 28 years of liberalization almost, if you see today, we are used to that. Yes, it has a lot of impact on our economy, no doubt. There are pros and cons. But due to the opening of the economy, so many jobs have been created. So many new technologies have come in. Our culture has changed to a great extent. Now, this is a debatable question again. But if you see, we have to change. And if we want to grow our sectors, we need investments and we need technological intervention. And in this regard, the bills that are being introduced, the logic that you need to use, Vipul, is a bill is good if it is a win-win situation for all the entities. If any of the entities is losing, we always have to find out possibilities where they also can get benefit. If that is taken care, look at it from this angle. Are farmers getting benefited? Government getting benefited? Customers getting benefited? If all of them are getting benefited, then the bill is good to go. So that is why I'm saying always economy stands at the center. If economy is not successful, then the policy is a failure. Hope you got it. Right? Good. So students, in the next class, we will be starting with wholesale price index and consumer price index. So we'll be starting with that in the next class. We will not be starting it now since it is a large topic to discuss. We will be starting that in the next class. So till then, any other doubts you have? Okay, Mithali is asking a question. Liberalization has harmed the domestic firms to some extent. Now, Mithali, again, how long can domestic firms be protected? Now, the question is, this is the government's dilemma. The government is opening up the economy. On the other hand, the government is also saying, stay local, stay vocal about local. Mithali, are you understanding? On one hand, we are empowering the domestic market. On the other hand, we are encouraging globalization. So it is like our country needs capital and our country also needs domestic growth. And if that has to happen, we can't stop private investments coming in. So liberalization has to be looked at in a positive way with constant empowerment of our domestic firms. Right, Mithali?
So I have a question.
Meenu, yes, yeah.
Demonetization. Demonetization was happened in 2016 in India, right? The experts said that this is not in a true sense of demonetization. What has happened in India? Why so?
I'm not sure in what context they have said that, but here the phenomenon of demonetization that was taken up was that they told that black money will be eradicated. Yes, if black money was in cash, the estimation was that when all the money has been demonetized, we will be able to tackle that black money which is in cash, which won't come back to the government again. So they expected 17.5 lakh crore in the economy, and the banks received around 15 lakh crore. So 2.5 lakh crore was what the profit made by the government. So it was estimated that this 2.5 lakh crore which didn't come back to the government was the black money that was eradicated. But again, if you see, this is a temporary phenomenon. The phenomenon again kick-started where black money is more today. Second problem is they told that they want to tackle corruption. How can corruption be tackled just by demonetization? That can't be tackled with demonetization because the bribery that's going on is going on as usual. Today it is much more easier to get corrupt or carry a black money because you have 2,000 rupee notes. Okay. The third problem is fake currency. If you see, which is the most fake currency in the world? Do you know most fake currency in the world? Any guesses, Meenu?
No,
Any
sir,
guesses?
no
Which is the currency which is the most faked in the world? It is
Indian
US
currency?
dollar. US dollar is one of the most fake currency in the world. When they can fake US dollar, why can't they fake Indian currency? Already out of 90 features of 2,000 rupee note, more than 60 plus features have been imitated. And if you see, for making one 2000 rupee note, it will cost you around 3.5 rupee. Sorry, if for 1000 rupee note, it will cost around 3.5 rupee. Now, don't you think they will get a better margin by 2000 rupee note to make a fake currency? Don't you think they're getting a better margin here? So fake currency will actually improve and not reduce. And lastly, what the government told was that you will have cashless economy. But if you see the ad on Hindu newspaper, when the demonetization was taken up, the ad was ATM chodo, ATM karo. So they realized, they knew that our ATMs are not equipped enough to cater to your need of the economy. And there started the journey of ours using cashless economy. Remember the journey? We started using Paytms, we started using digital currency. And now it has become a behavioral change. Looking at the positive side, income tax collections have increased. GST collections have increased. People are aware that if a government can do such an activity, and our behavior towards digital currency is improving. But negative side is that our GDP came down and we are still suffering. The slowdown in the economy today can be attributed to the demonetization that was taken up a few years back. So many businesses are closed, and India is a cash-based economy. That is a point that you need to note. And if this cash flow is stopped, the entire flow will be stopped. And probably in this sense, they told that demonetization is not taken up in the normal economic sense, but due to a wide purpose that we want to tackle through demonetization. Meenu, did you understand?
Yes.
So this is how we need to critically analyze every policy. So we shouldn't just go with the media. We should always have our logical thought in mind and try to analyze whether it is true or wrong. So use your logic, always use win-win situation logic and see if all the stakeholders are benefited. If they're not benefited, what can be done to get benefited? That's how we need to think. Never negate anything. Always go with constructive criticism. Okay? Yeah. Yes, Nitin, when I say inflation, inflation is about only basket of commodities and not services. No, Nitin, it is both basket of commodities and services. In CPI, we include both goods and services. Kritika, are globalization and liberalization, privatization mean the same? No. Kritika, we'll be touching upon that concept in detail during the chapter of external sector. You will learn it there. Globalization is opening up our markets to global companies. Privatization is increasing the private stake in the company, and liberalizing means liberalizing the rules. Right? Nitin, any example for services? Again, when I say services, what we are offering to you is a service. Offering coaching for UPSC is a service. Hope you got it. If they are not including the services, it means they are underestimating the national income of the country. Hope you got it. Because we are a service-led economy. Okay. So students, time is up. So tomorrow's class, we will be touching upon the detailed explanation about what is wholesale price index and consumer price index. Right. So I hope you all started reading the book called India's Economic Development, class 12 NCERT, and also Key Concepts of Economy by Shankar Ganesh. So kindly do that, and we'll meet again tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.